In this, in this video, we'll be looking at finding an angle using the cosine rule. Now in the previous video, we used the cosine rule to help us find a side length. Now, remember from this diagram here, we know the cosine rule is we need to know two unknown sides and an angle to determine the opposite side. So in this video, we're going to work out whatever that angle is by knowing the 1, 2, and 3 sides of a triangle. So if we know 3 sides of a triangle, we can use the cosine rule to help us establish whatever angle we want. It could be A, C, or B. Now when we're using or finding an angle, we can either solve in our class pad for this, or we can use our rearrange formula. We're going to experiment with both ways today, using our angle formula or just solving in our class pad for this here. So off we go. We've got 2 examples here. It says find the angle theta of this triangle, correct to 2 decimal places, no ambiguous case, or cosine rule. So correct to 2 decimal places. So we're going to find the angle to 2 decimal places. Now we can use the cosine rule because we know 1, 2, 3 of the sides. Our first step, as with everything, is to label our triangle. I start in the bottom left and go counterclockwise A, B, C. Then opposite the big A will be the small a. Opposite the big B will be the small b. And opposite the big C will be the small c. Our next step is to solve for angle A. So we want the subject of the equation to be angle A. So let's have a look. Which equation should we use? Should we use cosine A, B, or C? Well, this more or less has a subject as A, so we're going to use cosine A is equal to B squared plus C squared, take A squared on 2BC. So, cosine A is equal to B squared plus C squared minus A squared on 2BC. Now I like double checking that I get the equation correct, so let's just go back up again. B squared plus C squared, take A squared on 2BC. Now this is the way I would solve this problem if I only had a scientific calculator. We'll show you the class pad way after this. So off we go, we're going to sub in our values. Now in this case, B is 13 plus C squared, which is 12 squared, take 8 squared on 2 times by 13 times by 12. Now we're going to get some answer here. Now to get our A by itself, we're going to take the inverse cosine of both sides. So in our class pad, we're going to type all of this in. Okay. Now this is the method you could use if you had a scientific calculator, because we get A by itself, because our scientific calculator can't solve equations. So off we go. Trig, and I want to find inverse cosine, making sure my calculator's in degrees and decimals. Shift divide to get a brackets, and then I go 13 squared plus 12 squared minus 8 squared on 2 times 13 times 12. Okay, and then I close my bracket. When I press execute, I get an angle of 37.05 degrees. So therefore I can say theta, in this case which was A, right, is equal to 37.05 degrees. Now this strategy is good for a scientific calculator. If you're using a class pad, I'd recommend this way. First step is to go, okay, I know side AC, which is B. I know this angle, and I know side C. Therefore, I can work out A. So I'm just going to use my normal strategy for solving this, and I'm going to pretend like I'm finding A. I already know A, but I'm going to use my normal cosine rule for this. So I'm not going to use my finding angle formula for this. So I'm trying to find A. If I go up here, I know that this formula here is what you use to find A, or A is a subject in this case. So I'm going to use this formula. A squared is equal to B squared plus C squared, take 2bc cosine A. So I write that out. A squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine A. I sub in my values. And I've got this equation here. Now, you can do this way, or you can just go, listen, I know my class pad can solve equations. I don't need to rearrange. I can just plug this into my class pad. So, we go shift equals for solve, and go 8 squared is equal to 13 squared plus 12 squared. Take 2 times 12 times 13. Sorry, it should be 13 times 12. It doesn't matter, but I just want to follow along with the example. Times by, and then cosine. Instead of a, we're going to write x. So cosine, and then x. Now, remember this? I get this value here before. How do we get rid of that in our sine rule form? Well, do you remember up here, or in fact I can show down here, if we want to solve for an angle, we always need to go that 0 is in between, or x is in between 0 and 180 degrees. So I'm going to change this rule slightly. I'm going to go across and put that, given that in. So go to Math 3, press this vertical line here, and then type in 0, x, 180. And this is saying our angle has to be within 180 degrees and 0 degrees. Press execute, and now it pops 37.05 degrees. So therefore, theta is equal to 37.05 degrees. Now in this way, we can say that our class pad is very, very useful. We avoid a lot of this legwork by having to rearrange and resolve. All we have to do is memorize one equation, which is this equation here, in terms of A, and we don't have to memorize this at all. So I would recommend doing this method for the cosine rule in particular. We're up to your turn. You know what to do. Can you please have a go at this, find the answer for theta to 2 decimal places, and then play the video when you're ready. So pause the video now. We'll go into the your turn now, so make sure that your answer is ready to go. Our first step is to go A, B, and C. Label the edges, small a, small b, small c. We can see here that we want to work out big A here. I'm just going to use our class pad strategy for this question. So what we're going to do is A needs to be the subject because we know we want to find out angle A. Therefore A has to be the subject. So A squared is equal to B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine A. Sum in our values. And then we're going to go CP solve. Now in our class pad, I've already have this set up. So we're just going to wait for my OneNote to load. Okay, so I've just thrown a bit more than that. I'm going to take there. Beautiful. It's loading up now. And in the meantime, I'm going to type this into the class pad. 9 squared. And press execute. There's our answer. We have A, and in this case theta, is equal to 26.53 degrees. And there's our answer. Hopefully you got the same.